Every year we run into challenges during the growing season. Sometimes it's too many bugs, weeds overtaking the garden, animals getting past the fences. But despite all of the challenges, we have been blessed with a harvest that is enough for us to complete our goal, which is eating vegetables only from our land throughout the year. Over the last month or so, we have been harvesting our storage crops. Once the potatoes start to form, we actually harvest them throughout the entire summer because they're so good when they're small and immature and they haven't cured yet. But for the rest of the potatoes, they get left in the ground until this time of year when we harvest them all at once. So last year I got some advice to leave the potatoes in the ground until September, and I did that. And after we took them up out of the ground and cured them, they lasted so much longer in storage. However, this year when September came around, some of the potatoes started to re-sprout, which didn't really happen last year, so that was unusual. Even though that happened, the potatoes are still in better shape than they would have been if I had picked them right when the greens had died back, because my cold room doesn't have ideal conditions for storing potatoes. So after harvesting, we cure the potatoes in our garage, spread them out in one layer under a piece of cardboard for a week or sometimes two if I don't get to them in time or if I'm distracted with something else. For the pumpkins, the majority have matured and cured in the garden, but I am harvesting them all since we were very close to our first frost. Even the ones that are green and haven't fully cured will harden and cure over time. If for some reason they don't cure or they start to go bad, we feed those to the pigs. In the few weeks that we had the pumpkins curing in our garage, we lost a few to rotting, and that is fairly normal for us, so I don't worry too much about that. My goal each year in growing what I do for storage crops isn't to have a huge excess when I'm finished. It's to get the amounts for what we need to make it through the winter and the spring, or just have slightly more than that. A large surplus of a certain veggie crop means that I spent too much time and energy on growing something that we aren't eating, and I could have focused my time and energy elsewhere. So I really try and dial that in pretty good so that we can get exactly what we need and not grow that huge excess of a certain crop. So for the squash and the pumpkins, in certain years we grew too much, and even though we can feed the extras to our pigs, I definitely consciously chose to grow less butternut squash this year because I grew so much one year that I was trying to think of all these different types of ways to use it, and we were using it in a lot of meals, but we really all just got sick of it and then didn't want any more. And even now, we are not huge fans of it just because we overdid it that one year and I tried to use it in everything. So I decided we need to have a lot less of that butternut squash, and I put more time and effort into growing more sweet potatoes and the regular potatoes because that is what we like to eat more of. We don't get sick of that quite as quickly as the butternut squash, and it's really important to grow what your family likes to eat. This is pretty cured. We could probably take that inside. But I need to move out all the old stuff.
Yeah.
How are the eggs coming along, Dax?
Good. I got one more from A-Frame.
Today is sweet potato harvesting day. I'm really excited because sweet potatoes are definitely one of our easier things to grow here. Hardly water them, and I don't fertilize them at all, and they still make really big sweet potatoes. So one of the things about sweet potatoes is they do not like super fertile soil. One thing I'm really nervous about in harvesting these sweet potatoes is that we had a major rodent problem this year because I grew peanuts, and I didn't realize that the peanut was such a huge attractant for all of the rodents in like a 1 mile radius. It was crazy. We caught 15 mice and voles in 1 hour. So it was a really bad problem, and I started to harvest a few of my peanuts. There's hardly any left between the rodents, and then the birds came and finished them off. It was like, well, why on earth did I even grow those this year? They produce prolifically, which is really cool. Same with the sweet potatoes. It's just these outside things in nature that just come in and realize there's food here, and they just eat it. So natural thing, but I want to keep the food that I grow. So next year I'll definitely cover it if I grow it again, and looks like we're still going to be buying peanuts and peanut butter this year. But it was a good learning experience nonetheless. So back to the sweet potatoes. I peeked over there and saw some rodent damage. I'm hoping it is not extensive, but we're going to go check and find out.
Finished before.
Well, that would be cool. Unfortunately, the rodents did get my sweet potatoes here. Here's one that has some extensive damage, and here is a larger one where most of it was underground, but the portion that was mostly above ground got damaged right here and eaten. So actually both of these are still good. I will let them cure. They will last a very long time, and then when it comes time to eat them, I'll just cut off the bad part and eat the rest.
That's what it's about. I love your hat, Mama.
Thank you.
Communicate with me, okay?
Yeah, the other batch of...
Can I bad for? Yeah, after Keaton's done, he's got eight plants. Find the two vole traps and bring them to me.
Maybe give him...
Oh!
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 Get this on video!
I know it's on video.
Oh!
Snake!
This one right toward me. That's the snake I saw.
Yep.
Well, it's eating the rodents, so
Yeah.
that's good.
Hey, dude!
Oh, I think we pierced him.
Where?
Sorry, guy. He'll be fine. It was just a surface thing.
Ooh, wow. That is... Oh, it's smooth.
Yeah.
I want to see his head. Hello.
Okay, should I point him towards Mom or?
I'm scared.
Pounds. 73 pounds.
Okay, so
Exactly.
73 and the other one was 80 something.
Just, I think it was just 80.
Okay. So we weighed all of our storage crops. I don't weigh everything that I grow, just the storage crops, because we rely so heavily on them during the winter, and I want to make sure that we have kind of around the right amount to last us through the winter. And I also like to have that record to know if we run it out, do I need to grow more the next year? So we've been doing this for several years, so I have a pretty good idea of how much we need based on the years prior.
Okay. What is it? 55 pounds. Whatever that is.
46.
56. Well, what does the number say? 52.
52.
It was on... What's on?
32. 31.
I have to like hold it and do that one.
Okay. 50.
Okay.
Our potato total for this year is 365 pounds, and I'm super happy with that number because surprisingly it is the exact same amount as we got last year. I was kind of shocked at that. It's pretty exciting because we were able to have enough to eat all throughout the winter. We had enough for seed for the next year, and we had enough to be able to use some of that because we had a lot of company last year, so we had some extra for that as well. And then by the end of the year, we really only had about 10 pounds left, so that was just the perfect amount, and we got the same amount this year, which is great.
The white thing or the crate?
It's the crate. 46. 38. 42. 35 and a half.
Sweet potato harvest total is 141 and a half pounds. That is about 20 pounds less than our harvest last year. However, we did have some extras last year, about 15 pounds extra. So this amount, 141 pounds, is going to work just fine for us and will last us through the winter.
30 and a half.
Okay.
$40 exactly. 28. $26. 20 exactly.
The Lady Godiva pumpkins, the ones that are green and orange, those ones I use to save the seeds inside. And then the rest of the pumpkin we feed to the pigs because it's not good to eat. The Long Island cheese pumpkins, those we do save the actual pumpkin flesh, and we make pumpkin puree out of 90% of that and freeze it for later. Total weight for the Long Island cheese pumpkins is 98.5 pounds. That is a lot of pumpkin and it would make a lot of pumpkin puree. I will probably cube up some of the pumpkin this year and freeze it or freeze dry it and put some of it into chilies. But for the most part, we will just make it into pumpkin puree, and that is a 2-year supply of pumpkin puree for us. I did this 2 years ago. It worked out really well. It did not get freezer burn at all in our freezer. We just put it in quart-sized bags, push out all the air, and then freeze them for when we want to use it in baked goods. The Lady Godiva pumpkins, the total was 46 pounds.
30 and a half.
Okay.
14.
Okay.
The total weight for the butternut squash is 44.5 pounds, which I'm gonna see how that works for us. Just based on what I told you before, we have had too much in the past. Earlier this year, we harvested all of our onions, cured them, and put them in storage. I weighed them at that time, and the total was 200 pounds of onions. Last year, I did not weigh my onions. I only counted how many I got, and I had gotten 200 count total. And if you think about each onion weighing like maybe a quarter pound on average, that would be 50 pounds total. So I got a lot more onions this year, and that was intentional because last year I ran out of onions before we even hit winter. It was probably around this time of year. Actually, no, when I did my pantry tour, I still had some onions in there, but it wasn't very many. We probably had like 30 or so left just because I used so many in the canning process. So that is why it is important to weigh everything at the end of the year and kind of keep a tally to see, do I need to adjust how much I need to plant next year? Do I need to plant more? Do I need to plant less? And it really helps with that because everybody eats so differently that it's really hard to give an exact amount for everybody. And especially everybody grows in different areas. And I know these amounts, I know exactly how many row feet of potatoes to grow. I know how many plants of butternut squash I need to grow, how many sweet potato plants it takes to get about the right amount of yield. And I did plant the same amount as last year and I got a little bit less pounds. But now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably because the mice ate a bunch of my sweet potatoes. So that accounts for why we're about 20 pounds less than I was last year. So yeah, you can't really plan for everything, but you can really get a good idea just by weighing each year how much you get and then adjust from there. Totals for storage crops of potatoes, sweet potatoes, pumpkins, butternut squash, and the onions this year is 900 pounds. So all of the carrots that we grow, the radishes, the turnips, all of those stay in the garden. So I actually won't weigh those at all unless I weighed them as I brought them in, but I usually don't. So overall, we're right where we need to be to have the right amount of food to last us through the winter.